Okay then, boys. The transfer deadline has now finished. Our squad is officially confirmed now, so we can see what Maresca has to work with for the whole season, right? So let's just sort of break down the outgoings and the incomings. For me, the outgoings were a lot more successful than our incomings. Not to say we necessarily had a really poor transfer window. I think some people are overreacting a little bit. So I'll break it down. I'll give my thoughts and where we could have maybe improved, and obviously the players we brought in, right? And just some of more of the updates that we had, because it was all popping off with loans like failing and a few transfers fell through, right? So let's get into it. Let's break it down. So we've got here the transfer window is officially over. Obviously, a few players can still go to Turkey and some other places, but for the gist of it, and mostly for Europe, it is now shut, right? So following the back of finishing in Champions League and becoming world champions, here are the signings that Chelsea directors and owners made during the transfer window. Total spent 208 before add-ons. So let's break it down, the major signings, right? João Pedro, for me, this is easily our best signing with Estevao. Estevao doesn't make this graphic, right? Because technically it wasn't made this transfer window, but he joined the club, right? So for me, João Pedro, this is a 10 out of 10 signing, to be honest. So much upside, not much risk. We didn't pay over the odds for the character and player we're getting, right? We've already seen that, the immediate impact he's had. So versatile, brilliant technique, can play anywhere across the front four. Composed. This is a player who was born to play in the Champions League. You can see that, and I'm surprised we didn't have more pushback, right? It was only really Newcastle fighting to sign him, and maybe if Isaac had gone to Liverpool earlier in the window, we would have had to fight harder and maybe pay a higher fee if Newcastle had the funds available there, ready to go, right? So for me, great signing. You can't really have any negatives, and especially seeing how he's hit the ground running in the Club World Cup, in the Premier League. Let's wait for the Champions League now, because I'm sure he's gonna bang there as well. Jamie Gittins, this is sort of like a 7 out of 10 for me, with the fee involved in this. When you're looking at Gittins and Garnacho, the combined fee there is about 90 million, right? And personally, I think for what we spent, we can do better than those two wingers. There's a lot better options on the market. Not to say Jamie Gittins is a bad player. He's definitely, he's probably an upgrade over Sancho, which is what we had last season, right? The upside's there in terms of potential. He's still quite raw. You can see that in his shooting technique, in his link-up play. But if we're talking dribbling, pure dribbling, and chances created from beating his man, he's definitely a very talented winger, right? He just needs to add a few more levels to his game, which I'm sure he will. He's still so young. But for me, getting into the Champions League, Jamie Gittins just doesn't quite, he hasn't got that it factor. Maybe in 2 years from now, it'll be different, right? So personally, I think he could have maybe developed a bit more, and then we get him, because he's not going to be, an out-and-out starter on the left wing. Neto's going to be there, and we've got Garnacho to throw it into the mix as well, right? So yes, we've got lots of options on the wing, but for the fee we paid, I feel like we did overpay a little bit. But again, it's not a bad signing. I'd go like sort of 7 out of 10. The potential's there, and if he lives up to it, he'll shut me up. I think Liam Delap, I'd probably go like 7.5, bordering on 8 out of 10 signing. The fee wasn't much at all. Different profile to Jackson. Now you could argue, is he an upgrade over Jackson? Who's the better player? Jackson potentially. I mean, I see him misprofiled anyway. I class Jackson more as a winger or like a second striker, right? Delap is a pure number 9. Good link-up play, not the best. Obviously, he's not going to be on the ball and beating people and playing a deadly through ball. He's not going to be doing anything like that. But back to goal, it gives us a different option. And if João Pedro's having a poor game, or you saw if we're against a physical team, we can play João Pedro in that 10 position, play Delap up top, right? And we can play Palmer on the right. That gives us so much more option. And we saw that against West Ham. His link-up play worked. Back to goal, played it on to Estevao. Estevao, ran down the wing, crossed it over, and Enzo slots it home. So, yeah, he's definitely got a part to play in our team. is he potentially like a world-class striker or anything like that? I don't think so. But with the fee involved, different profile coming off the bench, we can change it up if we need a bit more physicality. I like the signing. I think it's a good signing. Garnacho for me, I never liked him at United. Whenever I watch United play, for me he would just frustrate me a lot. Always shooting from distance, and I know it's not him, but his brother annoys me as well. Always posting on social media. There was rumors he was the one who was leaking team news early. So for me, it brings a bit of a headache. I don't really rate his character. I think he's a bit of a bad egg. Like potentially, could he explode? Yes, he could, because we've seen it with people, players struggling at United because it is quite a toxic environment, right? And as a club, they're on sort on a downwards trajectory, to put it quite frank. So could Garnacho prove us wrong? Could he, actually explode and be a top winger? He definitely could. But for me, I don't see it. We paid 40 million, and we didn't want to pay that. We wanted to pay 30, right? And United wanted 50, so we met in the middle. We paid 40 million for him. I don't like the signing. I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. It's not obviously a terrible signing. He's not a terrible player, but immediately if I see him picking up the ball and he's shooting from 30 yards instead of playing it to, Palmer or João Pedro or Estevao, it's going to annoy me because that's what he was doing at United, and perhaps he was frustrated at United because, Højlund had a particularly bad season, and obviously Bruno shoots from distance as well. So maybe he was thinking, you know what, if I pass to these players, they're not going to score anyway, so why not? I've got an ego, I'm going to shoot. But if he's doing that at Chelsea, I think Maresca's going to take that out of him anyway. So let's see. Maresca spoke to him, he believes in him. So I'm not going to push back too much on the signing. Look, I don't like it, but I'm not a sporting director. I'm more than willing for him to prove me wrong and have a good season and potentially a good Chelsea career as well, right? Joel Hatto, yeah, I really like the signing. Doesn't really immediately strengthen our team, right? Definitely got a part to play. We're in 4 competitions, right? And hopefully we can go deep in all of them. So we're going to need him for depth. He can play left centre back. He can play, left back, or if he's inverting as a free back, so sometimes what Cucurella does, or if he wants to invert and get into the midfield, right? He can do all that. He's super versatile, a really, modern ball playing defender, and he can also play as a left back if need be, right? So brings height, brings physicality, good pace as well. We're going to need recovery pace in certain games. So he's definitely got a part to play. Obviously, he's not like a starter, so you can't give him a higher rating because of that. He's not immediately coming to the team and demanding a spot. But 2 years from now, I have no doubt he's going to be a great signing. So for me, I'll give it sort of like an 8 out of 10. Just because immediately he doesn't come in and strengthen us straight away, right? He's still super young, 19, as a defender. That is really young. But he's got all the qualities, all the markers to be a top defender. So I have high hopes for him. Obviously, captained Ajax at a young age. He's a big character. So I really like the signing. Just doesn't immediately come in and strengthen us like João Pedro did, So that's why I can't give it a higher rating. And we paid quite a bit for him, but I think in this market, that's what you're going to pay for someone at that age. And that sort of unique profile as well. These sort of guards and wall defenders, as you call it. You see what Arsenal do with Calafiori, and you're playing centre-backs, but on the left or on the right, similar to what we're doing with Reece James as well, right? So he's a modern-day inverted fullback. Yeah, I like him. Good signing. And then Buonanotte, probably give it a 6 out of 10. Maybe that's harsh. But I don't know, I put it on the same level as Garnacho. I don't really like this signing. He's definitely talented, don't get me wrong, and I've seen a few people have been posting comps of him and hyping him up. Like, yes, he was playing in a poor Leicester team last year, so it's hard to really come to any sort of conclusion if you factor that in, right? But for me, look, he's a second string Brighton player. Again, I don't know why we keep signing Brighton players. We have that strong of a connection, right? We must do. I just think there were other options there. We had the chance to get Fermin Lopez. We made so much money on outgoings Firmin Lopez for me is an upgrade on Buonanotte, so I thought maybe we should have went into that a bit deeper. Obviously, we were pursuing Xavi Simons, so it's not like Buonanotte was our main guy, right? We were pursuing Xavi Simons for so long. Obviously, we couldn't pay the fee, or we needed Jackson and Nkunku to leave before we could bring him in. So naturally, it just slipped away, and we let Spurs pursue the deal because it's not like we bid for him, right? So it wasn't hijacked in that sense. But still, we know the interest was there. We just never followed through on it. So for Buonanotte, it was obviously not our main guy. We're getting him on loan, so there's not much risk involved, right? It's not like we have to pay 30 million if any can flop. So we don't. It's not necessarily a terrible signing. And is he an upgrade on like Dewsbury Hall? You know, if he's going to play that sort of role, I guess he is, right? And the main thing is Palmer's going to be playing every game in that position. He's purely just, if Palmer needs 20 minutes break, you know, Buonanotte can come on and potentially make an impact. Or in these Carabao Cup and FA Cup, you know, lower tier teams, he can play and he can make a, you know, have an impact there. But otherwise, I'm not the biggest fan of the signing. Again, he can prove me wrong. I'm going to go 6 out of 10. So immediately from these players, you know, there's definitely some positives. I don't think we had the strongest window, but it's definitely not a weak window, so I wouldn't overreact in that sense. People are saying Maresca should walk and all of this nonsense. Like, let's not be too reactionary. We still brought in some great players, and we've got a good team anyway. Like, let's not forget, we still got top 4 last season. Yes, we had a bit of a wobble when we had injuries, but hopefully these players, you know, that's what they're going to bring in, right? So when we get the injuries, we've got a bit more depth. Obviously, we had some more news here, right? So Chilwell to Strasbourg on a 2-year contract, and we actually got some money for him as well. Not really sure how we pulled this off. To be honest, it's a bit dodgy, right, with what we're doing to Strasbourg. I didn't think we were going to get rid of Chilwell, so for me, this was a really good outgoing. You know, I'm over the moon with this. I thought Chilwell was just going to rot until his contract was gone. But fair play, we got rid of him, so can't be too unhappy with that. Tyreek George, unfortunately, his Fulham move failed. I wanted to sell Tyreek George. I don't think he's quite Chelsea quality. He brings another body in, so if we get a couple injuries, Tyreek George is there. Obviously, he's quite versatile. He can play, you know, as a 9, shadow striker, right winger. I just don't think he's Chelsea quality. That's why he's going to Fulham, right? I would have taken the 22 million plus the 30% sell-on clause, but it wasn't the club's fault. It's just the Fulham deal fell through because who they were selling, that fell through as well, right? That's the only problem with leaving it till the deadline day to get our outgoings, you know, really going, because it's subject to change, right? And when you're working with a fixed time scale, things drop out and things happen. So look, he's another body in the team. So were we a bit short with Jackson going on loan? Sure. And we brought back Mark Gay. So we've got depth now if we do get a few more injuries. I just don't think he's Chelsea quality. Like, this guy can't be starting in Champions League games and the knockout games, you know, it just can't be happening. So he's going to be just another body, and we're going to sell him next summer, I imagine. So, but I'm more than happy for him to potentially, you know, develop quite a bit and have a good season, right? So Sterling stays at Chelsea, unfortunately. Now, he was linked with a loan move away to Fulham, and that didn't happen. Sterling stocks have never been lower. I mean, they've never been lower. Definitely do not buy into Sterling stocks. It can only go down from here as well. Right, so he's not open to moving to Saudi either. So I think Bro just wants to play in the under-21s because that's about all he's going to have right now. Yeah. Maybe he moves to Turkey, you know, Fenerbahce. Maybe someone comes in. Other than that, I don't see where he can go. If he's turning down Saudi, no one in Europe wants him. No one's going to pay his wages either, unless we take 100% wages and just get rid of him. But so I guess Bro just wants to play in the under-21s. So we'll see what happens here. Sterling needs to leave. Yeah, it's unfortunate his decline. You know, he was a great winger at one point, but that's not the case anymore. And that Fofana's loan collapsed as well, which is a bit annoying because this was another player we needed to ship on. Disasi didn't find a suitable club either. Disasi is a player who I could see going to Turkey though, so potentially, you know, this week or next, he'll make a move there, right? And I don't think he turned down Saudi either if they came calling. He was linked with like Bournemouth and Villa, clubs like these, but ultimately nothing happened. So Disasi's another player we need to try and move on. But I'm not too worried about Disasi. I'm more worried about Sterling. But push come to shove, Sterling, you're playing with the under-21s, buddy. So Chelsea are the first Premier League ever to bank 300 million in one window. So if we're talking purely outgoings, right, you've got to say it's like a 9, 10 out of 10 window, to be honest. We got rid of pretty much every single dead wood. There's only a few we need to move on. I'm going to hold my hands up. I don't think Chilwell was going to get moved on. What with the high wages and the poor season he had on loan last season, I don't think anyone would come for him, but Strasbourg came in clutch and we sold him there. So super happy with that. There's only a few more players we need to ship on, right, like we just mentioned. But, it's impossible. It's not Football Manager. We're not playing FIFA career mode. We can't just expect to get rid of all our deadwood and unwanted players in one window. It just doesn't happen like that. No club can do it, and certainly we can't expect Chelsea to do it. So for me, I give us like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Really positive outgoings. Incomings, to bump it up one more, I would have just liked a real creative 10. If we need to rest Palmer, if Palmer picks up an injury, yes, João Pedro can play there, right? But just an upgrade on Buonanotte. Now, Buonanotte might prove me wrong, but he's definitely a talented player. But I would have just liked to see, I don't think, he's not the caliber of Fermin Lopez or Xavi Simons, so I was expecting that sort of caliber of player. And if we brought in a body like that, for me it would be like an 8 out of 10 window. But because of that, I'd probably knock it down to like a 7 out of 10 window. Now, if we're factoring in sort of Andre Santos and Estevao joining as well, obviously 2 quality additions to the squad. Estevao, the sky is the limit for that guy, right? We don't know how good he really could be. He has the potential to absolutely explode this season, and I'm rooting for him. So let's see what happens. But you can just see here, right? This guy broke it all down for us. So let's just go through the major outgoings, right? So Jackson to Bayern, he's put it at 70 mil. We've got 16 loan fee, and then obligation, 56 million, and he has to play a certain amount of games. I think it was like something like 40, 45 games he has to play. I wouldn't be surprised if Bayern, play him one less game so they don't have to do the obligation if he doesn't have a good season. But if he has a good season, I don't see why they wouldn't, purchase him. So, yes, we can factor in 70 million, but it's not quite 70 right now, is it? It's 16, technically. Madueke to Arsenal was a great fee. I hate it. I wouldn't say hate, that's maybe a bit too harsh, okay? But I didn't like Madueke at Chelsea. I think he was super selfish. Thought he was the main guy. Relax, little bro. You're not the main guy at Chelsea. His ego was too big. Always just running down with Timberlands on, trying to dribble past everyone. So I was happy when Arsenal paid this fee. He potentially could have a great season at Arsenal, but I didn't rate him, so I'm happy for him to go. Felix to Al Nassr, that was a great fee as well. Credit where credit's due, 44 million. Didn't like it when we bought him. I think people were quite reactionary. Yes, João Felix, it's got that sort of aura and that name that comes with it. But this isn't the player he was 4 years ago, right? He's a shell of his former self. So I wasn't a fan when we bought him, so I'm happy for him to be sold as well. And Nkunku to AC Milan, it was a great fee again. So I feel like I'm repeating myself, but we did get great fees. We're really good at selling players, especially our deadwood. And Nkunku, if you put the optics into play, right? Didn't start many games for us at all, plagued by injuries, and we still sold him for 36 million. And you factor that into other players who get sold, who are, unwanted, plagued by injuries, didn't start many games. They're not achieving this kind of fee. So I'm really happy for Nkunku to be sold. I hope he has a good season. I'd like him to make the French squad for the World Cup. I think it was quite unfortunate. I wanted him to succeed at Chelsea. I was happy when we bought him, but it just didn't work out. And that's just football. Not every signing's going to work out. And we move, right? Dewsbury Hall to Everton for 30 million. He was only a squad player at Chelsea, so You know, you can't have too much issue at all. We got Andre Santos coming back from loan. He kind of plays that role. And he wasn't quite Chelsea quality, was he? He was only, you know, a squad option. So not a bad sell at all. Vega to Villarreal for 26 million. Definitely a good fee. He's a talented player, and you can see Villarreal have hit the ground running in La Liga. So definitely a team to watch this season. He's a talented centre back, but he didn't want to wait for his turn. So it is what it is, right? Petrovic for 25 million. Some people wanted Petrovic to come back to Chelsea and be the main goalkeeper. Petrovic isn't that guy, unfortunately. You'll see that at Bournemouth now. He's overrated. Chukwuemeka to Dortmund, 24 million. I think, how much did we buy him for? We sort of broke even on this, right? So, not bad. Ugachukwu to Burnley, 23 million. He's having a decent season already, right? He's playing good at Burnley. So, potentially, if Burnley go down, I imagine another club will buy him. And I think we got a bit of a sell-on clause as well. So, that's going to be more money next season. Tyreek George, now this one fell through, so we can't count this, right? Broja to Burnley for 20 mil. Broja, plagued by injuries, was quite unfortunate. 4 years ago, he was quite talented, right? But he just got destroyed by injuries. And then just to round it up, look, and then a few more, just Deadwoods getting us a few more million here. Anselmino will be one to watch on loan, and so will Sarr, so will Paez, and so will Penders. So these sort of 4 players here, you know, the ones to watch. Really, only one of these can make it. So Sarr on loan and Anselmino on loan. I think whoever has the better season, or whoever Maresca sort of feels fits into his plans more, the other one will be sold. We can't accommodate, you know, all these centre backs, especially with Badiashile coming back from injury and Fofana, you know. So we've got too many centre backs. So I imagine one of these will make it at Chelsea. So will it be Sarr or will it be Anselmino? It'll be interesting to watch them develop this season. And if he's going to play every game at Dortmund, that's going to be great for his development. So definitely one to watch. Henry Paez as well. I'm hoping he has a really good season. You know, I'm a football manager nerd, so I've been tracking him for quite a while. Got a bit of a mentality issue, like not quite as switched on as Estevao, but the talent's there. If he just sticks at it and really works hard, he can become, you know, a crazy player. Just needs to work on it though. And stop partying as well, because I saw he was doing a lot of that in Ecuador. And Penders, this is the goalkeeper Chelsea really want to come through the ranks, and potentially he could be our main goalkeeper next season. I still think he'll be a bit young, so I wouldn't be opposed to him having a good season at Strasbourg, and then maybe we even send him to Strasbourg again, or we loan him to a Premier League team just to get a bit more experience. But certainly within 2 years, I think he will be the main Chelsea goalkeeper. You know, people are calling him a Courtois regen. So let's see. You know, he's super tall, obviously Belgium. And Belgium goalkeepers, you know, there's definitely something there. So I'm hoping he can really, you know, grow into the play he can be. All the potential's there. He just needs game time now. So fingers crossed he stays injury free as well, because he did get a hip injury. But it turned out it wasn't anything serious. And then obviously our incomings, right? So João Pedro to Brighton, not to Brighton, from Brighton, 60 million. We already talked about it. We've already talked about most of these, right? So just Estevao, obviously 10 out of 10 signing. You know, we were really fortunate to get him. It was only because, you know, Real Madrid are stacked in those sort of winger positions, and they got Mastertuano as well. Barcelona have Lamine Yamal in that position, so obviously he's not going to go there. He's going to be fighting. And PSG, you know, they've got so many wingers now at the club as well. And Doué had a crazy season last season. So everything just sort of fell into line, and we were able to get Estevao. He's definitely, you know, a generational kind of talent. Let's just see if he gets there. I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but if you're talking purely potential, everything's there. Just needs to keep playing, and I'm sure he will. And I trust Maresca to develop him as well. Asugo looks like a really good sign-in for 20 million. Even if he doesn't play much, and we decide to sell him in a couple of years, we're guaranteed to make a profit. So you can't say anything bad about that. And we've talked about everyone else there. So these are all the incomings. If I had to rate it out of 10 for, you know, outgoings and incomings, I think I would say outgoings 9.5. We really, It was almost perfect, to be honest. We pretty much got rid of everyone we needed to. Achieved really great fees. We weren't selling, our deadwood for 10, 20 million. We achieved really great fees, which is definitely going to help us balance the books, which we know we need to when we got fined. And then in terms of incomings, could we have done better? Yes. Could we have backed Maresca more? Definitely. But, I don't think we should be overreacting and saying we had a bad window. If you're looking at the players there are definitely some upgrades over the team we had last season. Can we go out and win the Premier League? Probably not. I mean, look at what Liverpool have done. They've already won it as well, and they've got the experience in the team, with old heads like Van Dijk and Alisson. So we don't quite have that in our team, right? We don't have like a Thiago Silva character who, when the going gets tough, he's there to command the team. So, everything's lining up to have a great team in a couple of years. Especially, we need to keep Maresca as well. So if he wants something and we need to back him, I think we need to go out and do that, because Maresca's definitely shown he's good enough quality to be a world-class coach. He's got my full backing. I just hope that the sporting directors in the future, if he wants to get certain players, we go out and back him. I would have liked us to potentially get a left-sided centre-back. Maresca did say he wanted one to replace Corwell. And then, they sent the black cabs to him, and then he said, oh, maybe my English isn't too good. I didn't want that. We found an internal solution. Look, we all know that was nonsense. He wanted a replacement. So I feel like we should have gone out and got one. But maybe Joel Hotter, they trust him enough, and we got a Chompiong in the squad, so we have got people to fill in, right? But otherwise, that's the window done, and then we move on. So we got the international break now, aka snooze season, so no football this weekend. But then obviously Brentford, we go away to them the week after, right? Saturday, 8 o'clock kickoff. Look, Sunderland just beat Brentford, so I'm predicting us to beat them. I predicted them to go down. Maybe they won't, but they just sold Wissa as well, so they're a weak team. Away Brentford normally is a tough game because there's a good atmosphere, and there's been a couple times we went there when Thomas Frank was the manager, right, and we struggled. I don't think that's going to be the case this season. I wouldn't be surprised if they go down. So I'm predicting a win. Paul Palmer should be back from injury as well. Let's see how we line up. Yeah, hopefully no one gets injured on international break. Don't need any of that. And then obviously make a few videos breaking down the game when we get closer to it. But that's the window all in all. Look, not too negative. It was a good window. Nothing crazy. We certainly didn't do a Liverpool and signed Verts, Ekateke, Isaac, but they didn't have a perfect window either. In my opinion, they need to get a DM, and they didn't get a DM. So, look, it's not career mode. We can't always have a perfect transfer window. I think we strengthened in some areas, and some areas we got a little bit weaker, but that's life. So, for me, I'm not too negative. Some people are going overboard, but I trust Maresca and the team. I think we're gonna get top 4 again. I'd like us to do a deep run in the Champions League. We've done good in that competition. We've had a weak squad, and I certainly don't think we've got a weak squad. Let's win the FA Cup as well. We haven't won it for a while. So that's the video for today, boys. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.